You don't check your phone because you're busy. You check it because the moment you don't, something rises. A thin pressure behind the ribs, a restless heat in the hands, a faint dread that doesn't have a name but still feels like a warning. And you tell yourself it's nothing. You tell yourself you're just seeing if anyone texted, just checking the time, just making sure you didn't miss something important. But watch what happens when you try to stop. When the screen stays dark, the room gets louder. Not with sound, with you. Because the phone isn't just a device anymore, it's a portal out of your own head. A small, glowing exit sign you can reach for anytime your mind starts to feel too close. And that's the part nobody says out loud. The problem isn't that you're addicted to your phone. The problem is that you're relieved when you don't have to be alone with your own mind. Tonight, I want to talk about that relief. I want to talk about the quiet fear hiding underneath your just one more check. The strange way distraction becomes a personality. The way 1,000 tiny interruptions can protect you from a single honest thought. Because at some point, constant checking stops being a habit. It becomes a strategy for not feeling what you've been avoiding. A strategy for not hearing what you already know. A strategy for staying just slightly numb so you never have to face the full weight of your life. And the cost of that strategy is bigger than you think. It doesn't just steal your time, it steals your depth. It fragments your attention until your own inner world feels like a place you can't enter without panic. And the longer you live like that, the more you start to confuse stimulation with living. So let's go there quietly. Not with shame, not with moral panic, but with brutal clarity and a little compassion. Because if you can see what the phone is really doing for you, you can finally learn how to stop needing it. Not by force, by understanding. Most people think they check their phone because they want something. A message, a notification, a hit of novelty. But what if the deeper reason is that you're trying not to want something? Not to want meaning, not to want closeness, not to want a life that feels real. Because wanting those things is painful when you don't know how to get them. And the phone is a perfect alternative. It offers a controlled form of desire, small, manageable, endlessly replenished. A desire that never risks rejection, never risks failure, never demands you change your life. It gives you the sensation of movement without the vulnerability of direction. And that's why it's so seductive. Every time you check, you don't just receive information, you receive a break from being human, a break from uncertainty, a break from self-reflection, a break from the slow, heavy questions that don't have quick answers. Who am I becoming? Why am I restless even when nothing is wrong? What do I keep postponing? What am I afraid to admit? These questions don't arrive loudly. They don't crash into you like a crisis. They seep in through silence. And the phone is a weapon against silence. Not because silence is dangerous, because silence is honest. There's a moment, if you've ever tried to sit in a room without reaching for your phone, where you feel it, that slight internal recoil. It's not dramatic. It's not a breakdown. It's more like the mind flinching. And that flinch is revealing. It means something in you expects discomfort. Something in you has learned that being alone inside your own head is not safe. And that didn't happen randomly. It was trained. We live in a world that treats inner life like wasted time. If you're not producing, optimizing, replying, consuming, then what are you doing? Just thinking sounds suspicious now. Rest sounds like laziness. Stillness looks like weakness. So we fill every gap. We stand in line and we check. We wait at red lights and we check. We walk from one room to another and we check. Not because each moment needs content, but because we've lost the ability to let a moment be empty without feeling exposed. And that exposure is where your mind begins. That's where your real feelings start to organize themselves. That's where your real priorities surface. That's where the ache you've been outrunning finally catches up. A phone check is not always a craving for pleasure. Often it's a reflex to avoid pain. And the pain isn't always dramatic either. Sometimes it's just the quiet realization that your life doesn't feel like yours. That your days are full, but not meaningful. That you are connected, but not intimate. That you are informed, but not wise. That you are entertained, but not alive. Those realizations don't come with fireworks. They come with stillness. And stillness is exactly what you keep deleting with your thumb. There's a philosopher who understood this fear long before smartphones existed, Kierkegaard. He wrote about despair not as a loud tragedy, but as a subtle condition, a misrelation within the self, a life where you're not truly present to who you are. Despair, in this sense, isn't crying on the floor. It's living in a way that avoids becoming. And distraction is one of the cleanest forms of despair, because you can look functional while disappearing. You can be fine while never facing yourself. You can keep moving while never arriving. And the phone helps you do it elegantly. It gives you 1,000 small tasks so you don't have to take on one terrifying responsibility, to sit still long enough to hear your own mind. Because what you might hear is not flattering. You might hear grief you never processed, anger you keep swallowing, fear that your relationships are hollow, a sense that you're wasting your potential, a longing for a different life. And longing is dangerous when you've built your identity around being realistic. It threatens the story you tell yourself. It threatens the comfort you've learned to call peace. It threatens the version of you that everyone is used to. So you interrupt it, scroll, refresh, check again. The screen lights up and you don't have to feel the tremor of your own becoming. This is the hidden function of constant checking. It protects you from the self that wants more than you're willing to risk. But let's make this even more precise. What exactly is it about your own mind that feels so difficult to face? For some people, it's anxiety. Not the dramatic kind, more like mental static. A constant commentary, a sense of being behind, a feeling that something is wrong even when nothing is wrong. Your phone gives that anxiety an object. Instead of being a free-floating tension, it becomes, let me see what's happening. Now the anxiety has a purpose, and purpose is soothing even if it's fake. For others, it's shame, because shame is not just I did something bad. Shame is, if I sit still, I'll feel unworthy. Shame is a background hum that gets louder when the room is quiet. So you keep the room noisy, not with sound, with stimulation. And then there are people who check their phone because their inner world feels empty. Not peaceful empty, like a room with no furniture. And that emptiness is terrifying because it suggests something you don't want to believe, that you've been living on the surface for too long, that your attention has been spent on everything except what gives your life weight. So the phone becomes a way to avoid the confrontation with emptiness, because emptiness demands a response. It demands you create meaning, not consume it. And creation is risk. Creation is exposure. Consumption is safe. Scrolling asks nothing of you except presence without commitment. But here's the brutal paradox. The more you use the phone to avoid your mind, the less capable you become of being with your mind. You don't just escape discomfort. You train yourself to be intolerant of depth. You train yourself to need a constant drip of novelty in order to feel okay, and gradually, your attention, your most sacred resource, becomes fractured. Not because you're weak, because you're adapting to an environment designed to break you into pieces. Attention is not just a cognitive skill. It's spiritual. Your attention is what you give your life to. Whatever you repeatedly attend to becomes your inner atmosphere. If your attention is always being pulled outward, your inner world starts to feel unfamiliar, like a country you used to live in but haven't visited in years. And then, when you finally do have to be alone when the noise stops, your own mind doesn't feel like home. It feels like a threat. That's how people end up saying things like, I can't meditate, as if the problem is meditation. No. The problem is that you've been trained to fear being with yourself, and the phone has become the fastest anesthetic. Nietzsche once warned about a kind of modern sickness, a restless inability to be alone, a constant need for stimulus to avoid confronting the self. He didn't have smartphones, but he understood the pattern. When a person cannot endure their own company, it's rarely because they are too social. It's because they are divided, because there is something inside them that feels unresolved. The phone doesn't create that division. It exploits it. It offers you the appearance of connection while keeping you internally fragmented. Think about it. How often do you check your phone while someone is talking to you? How often do you check it while eating? How often do you check it during a moment that could have become intimate with a person, with a thought, with a feeling? It's not just a habit. It's a refusal to let reality fully touch you. Because reality has weight. Reality asks you to pay attention, and paying attention means being changed. The phone offers a life where you can stay the same, always updated, never transformed. So the question becomes, what would happen if you stopped checking? Not forever, not heroically, just what would happen if you let a pocket of silence exist? At first, you'll feel itchiness, a strange agitation. You'll notice how quickly the mind searches for escape routes. You'll notice how many times per hour you reach without thinking. And that noticing will sting because it reveals how automatic your life has become. But if you stay with it, something else emerges. Under the itch, there's information. Your mind will start presenting you with the things you've been postponing. You'll remember tasks you've avoided, conversations you need to have, truths you've been dodging, not in a dramatic, cinematic way, in a quiet, persistent way. Like your inner world finally getting a chance to speak. And what it says might be uncomfortable, but it will be real. Because here is the secret. Your mind is not your enemy. Your mind is a messenger. The anxiety, the restlessness, the boredom, these are not random glitches. They are signals. Boredom is often the signal that your life is under-challenging your soul. Anxiety is often the signal that you're living ahead of yourself. Restlessness is often the signal that you're avoiding a deeper commitment. When you drown these signals in constant checking, you don't heal. You just postpone. And postponed signals don't vanish. They ferment. They become irritability. They become numbness. They become a vague sense of meaninglessness that you can't explain. That's why people can scroll for hours and still feel hollow. Because the phone doesn't satisfy the deeper hunger, it just keeps it sedated. Viktor Frankl wrote that when meaning is absent, people often seek substitutes: pleasure, power, distraction. Not because they're shallow, because they're starving. And if you don't know how to feed meaning, you will feed on noise. That's what endless checking is. Feeding on noise. Small bites of novelty to avoid the larger hunger that demands a different life. So let's talk about the hidden hunger. When you check your phone, what are you really looking for? Sometimes it's reassurance. Am I still included? Did I miss anything? Is something happening without me? Sometimes it's control. If I stay updated, I won't be blindsided. Sometimes it's identity. If I keep consuming, I'll keep knowing who I am. Because in a world where the self is unstable, information becomes a kind of anchor. But it's a false anchor, because it anchors you to the outside. And the outside never stops moving. So you keep checking, not because you're curious, because you're afraid. Afraid of falling behind. Afraid of being irrelevant. Afraid of missing the moment where everyone else figures life out. And this fear is understandable. Modern life is built to produce it. We are surrounded by curated evidence that other people are living better, faster, fuller lives. Even if you know it's edited, your nervous system absorbs it. Comparison becomes the background radiation of the day. And when comparison is constant, stillness feels like losing. If you're not consuming, you feel like you're falling behind. But behind what? Behind a race you didn't choose. Behind a standard that keeps changing. Behind an algorithmic feed that will never declare you caught up. The phone promises completion, but completion is the one thing it cannot give you. Because completion requires an ending, and feeds are designed to never end. So your attention is kept in a state of perpetual incompletion, perpetual anticipation, perpetual reaching. And if you live in perpetual reaching, you will rarely feel at peace even when your life is objectively fine. This is why checking becomes compulsive. Not because you're broken, because the system is brilliant at exploiting the mind's ancient vulnerabilities, novelty seeking, social belonging, fear of exclusion. But again, the most important layer is personal. Your own mind is the final battlefield. Because even if the system pushes, you still reach. So the question returns, what is in you that needs escaping? Sometimes it's grief. Grief is slow. It asks for time. It asks for silence. The phone is fast. It asks for nothing. Sometimes it's regret. Regret is the mind replaying what you didn't do, what you should have said, what you avoided. The phone interrupts the replay. Sometimes it's loneliness. Not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of being unseen. The phone offers the illusion of being near people without the risk of being known. And sometimes it's simply the fear that if you stop, you'll realize you don't like your life. That's a terrifying thought. So you keep it at bay with stimulation. You check, then check again. And you call it normal. But you feel it, don't you? The way a day can disappear into fragments. The way you can be busy all day and still feel like nothing happened. The way your attention feels bruised by evening. The way silence feels too sharp. That's not just modern life. That's a mind being trained away from itself. So what do? Not the cheesy answer. Not, Delete all apps and move to the woods. Something quieter, something realistic. The first step is not discipline, it's honesty. You have to admit what the checking is doing for you, because you don't repeat a behavior this often unless it serves a purpose. So name the purpose. Is it soothing anxiety? Is it avoiding boredom? Is it numbing shame? Is it filling emptiness? Is it providing a sense of belonging? Once you know what it's doing, you can begin to replace the function, not just remove the behavior. Because if you remove a coping strategy without replacing what it provides, your mind will panic and return to it. So you don't just stop checking. You build tolerance for your own mind. You practice being with yourself in small doses. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Not as a productivity hack, as a return. Because the goal is not to become a monk. The goal is to stop living like you're afraid of your own inner world. One of the simplest practices is what I'll call the pause. Before you check your phone, pause for 3 seconds. Ask, what am I feeling right now? Not what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Restless? Anxious? Lonely? Tired? Avoidant? Just label it. Then decide. Maybe you still check, but now it's conscious. Now the phone is not pulling you like a puppet string. Now you are choosing, and choice is the beginning of freedom. Another practice, create one daily pocket of silence. 10 minutes, no phone. You don't have to meditate. You don't have to do anything. Just sit, walk, stare out a window. Let your mind do what it does when it's not being interrupted. It will feel messy at first, but mess is not danger. Mess is information. Over time, your mind will start to settle, not because you forced it to, because it finally has space to complete its own cycles. A mind constantly interrupted cannot finish a thought. A mind constantly interrupted cannot metabolize emotion. It cannot grieve, integrate, resolve. It stays in fragments. And fragments feel like anxiety. So if you want less anxiety, you need less fragmentation. If you want more peace, you need more continuity of attention. And that continuity begins with reclaiming small pieces of time, not heroically, consistently. And here's the deeper shift. Start treating attention like devotion. Simone Weil said that attention is a form of prayer, not necessarily religious, but sacred. Because what you attend to is what you kneel before. If you attend to endless noise, you become noise inside. If you attend to what matters, real relationships, real work, real silence, you become solid. You become someone who can stand in their own mind without flinching. And once you can do that, you will notice something surprising. You won't need to check as much. Not because you're virtuous, because you're no longer running. You're no longer terrified of the moment the screen goes dark, because you've made peace with what's waiting in the dark. And what's waiting is not a monster. It's you, not the polished version, not the performed version, the real one. The one with grief and longing and unfinished dreams and uncomfortable truths. The one who has been trying to get your attention this whole time. And that's why this matters. Because the goal isn't to reduce screen time. The goal is to stop abandoning yourself. Every compulsive check is a small abandonment. A small vote for escape over presence. A small decision to say, I don't want to be here. But being here is the only place where your life can actually happen. You can't scroll your way into meaning. You can't refresh your way into intimacy. You can't update your way into peace. Peace comes when you stop fleeing. When you stop treating your own mind like an enemy territory. When you can sit with the ache without needing to numb it immediately. When you can feel the uncomfortable truth and still remain. And yes, this will cost you something. It will cost you the comfort of constant stimulation. It will cost you the easy escape routes. It will cost you the illusion that you're staying informed when you're really staying distracted. But what you gain is bigger. You gain your attention back. You gain your inner world back. You gain the ability to live a day that feels like a day. And slowly, you'll notice that time stops slipping through your hands so easily. Because time doesn't disappear when you're busy. Time disappears when you're fragmented, when your day is 1,000 tiny exits from yourself. So the next time you reach for your phone, don't just ask, what am I checking? Ask, what am I avoiding? And be gentle, but be honest. Because avoidance is never free. It always has a price. And the price is your own mind, the only place you truly live. If this spoke to you, take a second to like the video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more.